Today on the 01581 Let's Talk, an update from our town manager, Kristi Williams, and a conversation with our library director, Kate Coraccio. Hi, and welcome to this episode of the 01581 Let's Talk. I'm the host of this show, Shelby Marshall, proudly serving as one of your 5 select board members. I bring the show to the community to provide updates on what's going on around town, introduce you to people you should know, and to hear about things that are of high interest. And so we typically start with a conversation with our town manager. So she's at the head of it all, and she typically brings us an update of a handful of minutes about hot topics kind of in town and what her, not only what her department is focused on, but therefore what many departments across town are focused on. Kristi, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so got a couple of topics to cover. So it is not the holiday season, but budget season. Yay! Okay, so budget season. If you would, I know it's like we should just have a script that scrolls, but you follow pretty much the same thing every year, maybe tweaking it year over year because we continue to get the distinguished award for our budget process.
Yes.
But what is the budget process and what should our residents, taxpayers be expecting?
Sure. So, the budget is voted on at the annual town meeting in March, but we actually start the budget process in August. So in August, when we're about 6 weeks into our new fiscal year, we start planning for the following fiscal year. This budget process focuses on fiscal year 2026. So in August, we sent a message out to all of our department heads, and we just asked them to prepare their budgets. Last week and this week, the finance director and I are meeting with all the department heads to go through their budgets, understand any requests and increases, talk to them about potential decreases, really working through those documents in detail. And then over the next few weeks, we'll be putting the budget document together. So that budget document is due to the Select Board and Finance Committee on December 21st every year. This year, we want to add some additional detail about some of the expense lines. So just constantly looking at ways to improve, using that budget document really as an extremely transparent tool to give people an overview of what all of our departments are working on, what our goals are. And then that kicks off all of our public meetings. So usually the first or second meeting in January, we do the budget hearing with the select board, and then at the last Thursday in January, we do a full day budget summit with the select board and the finance committee, and that gets us through. We refine all the way until the March town meeting.
And that second meeting you mentioned includes department heads that are coming through, and then obviously there are other meetings, select board, finance committee, where those department heads are coming back to kind of refine their message or provide clarity.
Yep.
Okay, great. Any particular areas that you think are hot buttons for you and your team to focus on with this budget? Other than obviously everyone wants lower taxes, right? So
Of course.
we know that,
Yep.
we get that, and yet most of what we do is in service, right? So contracts go up. We're a heavily unionized organization. We have contracts we have to adhere to, and just inflation, right?
Yeah. So looking ahead to fiscal 26, we're really holding the line in terms of adding additional staff. I think the community's been extremely supportive of our department staffing up over the last few years. And so I don't anticipate seeing any additional staff for fiscal 26. As you just mentioned, union contracts, we're working collaboratively with our unions, but we won't necessarily have all of our contracts settled by that December 21st date. And so that will be something that we're watching as we move through the budget process, because obviously that will, as we settle those contracts, we'll adjust the budgets. I think one of the things that we're looking at is our electricity contract for our municipal buildings expires at the end of calendar year 25, which is mid FY26. So we have upcoming meetings to talk about how we might anticipate the increase that we'll feel in 26.
Yeah, that's I don't have the graph in mind, but it's kind of gone up like this over time, and I know residents and businesses are feeling it, and the town is not immune to that. So good. Well, we'll definitely would love to have you back, our finance director, John Steinberg, whomever you'd like to bring, because it's an important topic, and I think that you're under your guidance and leadership, the document you've created and the transparency around it is great, and yet still, we need to discuss it and make sure that the community is aware and understands it. Okay, so kind of a subset of the budget, or supplementing it, ARPA. So ARPA funds were given to communities as a part of the pandemic recovery. We had X amount of time to spend this money. There was a whole process, and now we still have some money left to spend, and we're coming very quickly to the end of that time, which is December 31, 2024, in which we have to be under contract, basically, for the balance. So an update on that, please.
Yep, so the town received just over $5.7 million, and I think that we should be really proud of the process we created, because I think there are some towns who are getting equally as close, obviously, to the deadline, and are sort of quickly trying to figure out how to spend that money. So we've done some really good capital projects with that money. And so we identified a few weeks ago that we had about $500,000 left in ARPA funds that we wanted to get obligated by the end of 2024. Last night, the Finance Committee considered several projects. I would call them smaller projects, a lot of them under $100,000, some under $10,000. And considered those for recommendation to the Select Board, which they'll consider at their November 19th meeting and consider for award. So I think one of the things that we are doing is we've identified one project in particular. We're proposing that any remaining funds go to the lead service line work of the DPW. And so that by designating that, it sort of allows us to capture all the available funds, all the pennies into one project. So
well, because that number, as we've seen, as you've presented updates on the ARPA, because we have interest, right? It keeps that number, we use it, but then the interest grows. So that's a great way to sort of say anything else is going here.
Redirect it. Yeah.
And that our DPW director, Chris Pant, has done a great job of communicating that, but there are a lot of unknowns, right?
Yeah.
Some in terms of the cost and who would bear them and so on and so forth. Okay, great. Okay, so again, December 31, 2024, all funds have to be under contract.
Yeah, and I would just say that this last grouping of projects, we've been looking at our master plan, our capital plan, as we're considering projects. This last grouping of projects has really focused on what's coming up in fiscal 26 on the capital plan, what's been asked for in the budget, and how can we use ARPA as an alternative funding source to mitigate that impact.
Right, and we are working with Clifton Larson, a consultant. The town voted to support that at a prior town meeting, which was a great decision because it really is kind of that audit control on the town. Are we using the funds appropriately so we don't end up in some sort of clawback situation?
Right.
So, great. Okay, two other updates, building related. Community center. So bring everyone up to speed. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but so we moved into sort of the next design phase with our architect and OPM. And that being, they've given us revised designs based on all of the initial public input sessions. We had a couple of meetings over the past couple of weeks where kind of they presented those and people provided further feedback. And then I believe there was a meeting last night around kind of, again, continuing to refine that. And we're on a pretty tight timeline. So bring us further to speed, please.
So the funding that was approved at the fall town meeting will get phase one, which is really the first level of the community center, the front part of that building, which would be predominantly senior center space, to full design and bid documents for the March town meeting, and then get the rest of the building into design development phases, so sort of a lower level of design. And so we're at a point now where we're working with the design team to seek feedback on interior finishes. So last night we saw pictures of rooms that had wallpaper and different and colored chairs and things like that. And so really receiving feedback on that, but still talking a little bit about, is the space big enough? Should it be bigger?
Sure.
Working really collaboratively with the design team, lots of input from, folks who are interested. We're trying to really schedule these meetings in person, virtually, during the day, in the evening, really to capture whoever wants to give feedback. Our next meeting will be in person because they're actually going to bring with them different fabrics and finishes so people can sort of touch them and see them more clearly.
Okay, great. And I know that the select board will be having some further conversation about that at the meeting on the 19th.
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, that meaning the community center. Sorry, I wasn't being clear about that. And just to be fully transparent, without sort of because I'm one of five, so I always have to kind of walk the line here with kind of how I talk about this. But in this setting, but I think that there is general concern. I know you've heard it in the community of we've got the library, we've got the community center, we've got taxes. Like, are we as a town bringing to the town, capital T, then to the community, a kind of thoughtful project balancing the taxpayers' tolerance for projects?
Sure.
And so those are conversations we'll be having at the next select board meeting, with full view and understanding of kind of what all the demands are, within the community. So, and then finally on buildings, golf club. Article was defeated at town meeting. It was sent back to municipal building committee basically to take another look at it and decide what next and where does that stand?
So the municipal building committee met on, I believe, November 14th. Which was the first meeting following town meeting, and ultimately took a vote to send the project back to the select board for further guidance. So for folks, just to remember, the select board had put together a committee, the Golf Club Building Use Committee. This was 18 months ago maybe. And that committee did some work talking to other golf courses and doing some community surveys and things like that to understand what they felt the community would be looking for in a new building or in a renovated building. And so the recommendations of that committee, the select board accepted, and then they gave them to the municipal building committee to do feasibility study.
Yep.
It came back not feasible to do a full restaurant and golf pro shop in the size that we were proposing. And when we say not feasible, it's because we want the funding for this project to come from the lease payments and any sort of agreement with the restaurant.
Right. Right.
And so,
with little to no impact on the taxpayer.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Important.
Yeah.
So the municipal building committee is giving that back to the select board just for further direction at this point.
Okay. Well, lots going on,
Yeah.
I think that's all we have time for today. But hopefully next week, see you on the show with whatever you have to bring. And thanks so much for joining this episode.
Great. Thanks.
Awesome. Great. And I'll be right back with guest Kate Coraccio, our public library director. Hi, and welcome back to this episode of the 01581 Let's Talk. I'm joined by our library director, Kate Coraccio. Kate, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited to have you on board. So you were officially appointed in your position in late June. And what was your start date?
So my start date was actually August 12th, but we started the hiring process much earlier than that.
Right, as those things go. Right, so a little bit of background. Folks that have been to the library, I'm sure know you, but there are probably many out there who have a library card like myself, and I have the opportunity to see you like through other venues, but haven't actually seen you at the library just because we haven't crossed paths there. So a little bit about yourself.
Oh, so I love libraries. Obviously, I made it my career.
Yeah.
And I really love spreading the joy of literacy and reading and community connection, and that is really what drew me to being a librarian. I think one of the things that's unique is that I didn't grow up as somebody who was taking the library every week. And, I wasn't a library kid that grew up into a library teen who grew up into a library adult. My first career I was a history teacher. I taught 9th and 12th grade history. Only lasted about a year.
Yeah.
That is a hard job.
Yeah.
Props to anybody who can do it. Started getting my master's in history and attended a library session. And that was really the first time that I had thought about libraries as a career, because I could still teach, but I could teach everyone. It wasn't just this one subject or this one grade. And that was really the piece that I loved, was being able to take those skills. And every single day I'm teaching staff, I'm teaching patrons. It's all about pedagogy, right? Like all of it. Yeah. So very passionate about libraries and the niche that they offer within a community. It's something that no other department does, no other piece of anything does. They're so unique in how they work and how they function and their mission. So I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of different libraries. I thought I would go into archives. Okay. That didn't happen. Okay. I ended up getting my first library job in Marlboro, in the old building, not the new one, and just fell in love with public libraries. Sure. And how much we are able to help people. Yeah. And I think that's really the thing that's unique about us, is that our goal and our purpose is to help people, no matter where they're at. Whether you're coming in because you need to print something to get a passport, something that simple, or you're coming in with a really deep research question and you don't know who to ask, that we're filling all of those needs, from babies, to being in college, being a young adult, being a working adult, being retired. Everybody, we're here to help.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
Where
hard
is that
job.
book on parenting, by the way?
Oh, everywhere. In the children's room. So you can browse it while your kid's playing.
Excellent.
But yeah.
Okay, great. So you've sort of touched on this, but so you love the helping aspect of being a librarian, and maybe I'll kind of twist that question a little bit, but not only what do you love, but if someone were to be thinking or not thinking about this as a career, what should they think about as they think about this as a profession?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. We've been having a lot of conversations at the state level about how do we do recruitment? How do we get people to understand what libraries are? How do we fill our libraries with people from our communities who want to impact this work? So I think one of the top things that people don't understand about being a librarian is that it is a master's degree level job. Most of the professional librarian positions, you need to have a master's in library science for. So
Are those hard to, are they offered broadly across universities, or?
So we're actually very lucky because Simmons is kind of nationwide one of the top library schools, and it happens to be in Boston. Yeah. So that's good. There are a lot of other programs, and there's more and more every year. There's also online options, there's in-person options, and I think what's really great about them is they all require some sort of, in-person internship on the job, because, there's so many things I go into every single day at work that I'm like, oh, they didn't teach me this in library school. and I think I've used so many of my teaching skills, right?
Sure.
And customer service skills. I learned a lot from retail, right?
Yeah, right.
So I think knowing that, we also say you don't get into libraries because you love books. If books is the only thing you love about libraries, maybe rethink that, because you have to love people, because you're not helping the book. You're helping the person find the book. You're helping the person connect with literacy. And so I think that that's the other piece of it. You really have to love people.
Interesting. Great. No, thank you. So as the library director, one of the many things you do, but really big picture, is that you get to shape the future of Westboro Public Library. So we were really fortunate to have Maureen Emiott for many, many years. And she, in my view, really kind of moved the library into a whole new direction. And now it's Kate's turn, right? And so what do you see as sort of your vision for the future of Westboro Public Library? And in your response, a hint around certainly what are the opportunities, but what are the threats? What are the weaknesses? So would love for our viewers to understand that.
That's a great question. I think that Westboro is a very unique community. It's one of the things I love about it is how how much community interaction there is. It very much feels like a small town, and I think that's lovely.
Yet we're not.
And yet we're not, right?
Right, yeah.
But it's lovely. There's so many community organizations to partner with, and that's amazing. It doesn't happen everywhere. So I think, my vision is really piggybacking off of what that foundation that Maureen built, right? I want to make sure that we're looking towards future library services. What can we offer that the public needs or wants, and how do we make that work? Libraries will always run into issues with staffing and budget and all of that. We are really, really focused on being amazing stewards of taxpayer money.
Sure.
We look towards all sorts of different, whether it's grants, we have a foundation, we have a friends group who is amazing, who help fund most of our programming. And so we're really looking at how do we expand our programming, because most of them, especially for children, are really well attended and it's hard to get a seat.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that we're offering what the people want. We want to make sure that we're looking at new and innovative collections. One of the ones we're working on right now, for example, is we've always circulated, they're called Tony boxes. They're for kids. They're a screen-free alternative to an audio book.
Oh, okay, yes.
But they have little figures, little characters. They're tactile, and they're easy for kids to use. And they come in books like Make Way for Ducklings, or just all the classics. They're really wonderful. And so we're expanding that collection so that folks who have one at home can take them out individually, and folks that don't have them, because access is the number one thing we offer, can borrow one and then have access to all of those tools. So we're looking at how do we expand our library of things, which is really well loved here in town.
Yes.
And also making sure that we're buying enough copies, that we have enough copies of all of the new and popular that everybody comes in wanting.
Sure.
Because the last thing we want you to do is go and spend your money on something that we could offer you.
Yeah, absolutely. When you speak about sort of collections and just your, I'm going to use the wrong word, don't cringe at this, inventory of your books and your media, and what's the trend? Like, I know like there's Audible and there's Libby and there's all, there's kind of the online different resources. And then there are some people like, man, I just need that book. So what do you see as the trend in, specifically as it relates to, forget like kind of the Audible or, online kind of that type of audio learning.
Right.
But
so I actually do think for 20 years, we've been saying that the paper book is going to go away, and that just has not been the case at all.
Yeah.
I think there's things like Book Talk and a new kind of the younger generation really embracing the physical, which is wonderful. In terms of trends, I think for adults, we're seeing a lot of celebrity autobiographies, which I am here for.
Yeah.
I love it. I want all the juicy details, right? I think we've also had an expansion of like true crime. I think podcasts have played a big role in books becoming popular as well, which is great to see. A lot of renewed energy in terms of book clubs as a way for community, people to build community, which is wonderful. I'm like, that's a niche we can jump right into. That's what we know.
And you offer some book clubs,
We
correct?
do. We offer a few different book clubs at different times a day.
Great.
Yeah.
Excellent. What... I'm going to turn a little bit more to the physical library because the elephant's not here, although maybe Tim and his team can put like a little elephant here. But the elephant in the room, right? We have this library repair project, excuse me. It started as a renovation, now it's a repair project. And that's a very important distinguishing word. But what makes for a great library? The physical space. Obviously, you got to have the people. You've already talked about that.
Yes.
What makes for a great library?
Yeah. So I will say the people make all the difference. We have an amazing staff. I will just put that out there.
Sure.
And we're very lucky. In terms of the physical space, I think because we try to fill this role as the third space in people's lives, where they're spending however many hours a day at work, the equal amount of time at home sleeping, right? Or whatever it happens to be. And then there's this void of where do you spend your time? And our goal really as a library is to be that place for so many people. And we're also a place that is welcoming, and we're not asking for your money to exist in that space, which is wonderful. And we want you to be there. We're encouraging. Ask us questions, talk to us. And so I think a lot goes into making that physical space somewhere people want to be. And so that means having facilities that match our needs. So, I think addressing our meeting room space, which currently has a giant hole in the ceiling, would be wonderful, and making it a place that's bright and inviting and that people want to spend time in, because it's very well used.
Sure.
We always have something going on. We've been using our main floor space for larger programming, which is great, but the only way we're able to do that is having furniture that's agile and movable.
Sure.
I think what's wonderful about our current space is the architecture of it is that there's windows everywhere, and so we get a lot of natural light.
Yeah, even through the stacks. I mean, as you're walking, you're not like under this sort of fluorescent or LED lighting.
Yeah, so
and you are. There are lights, but you get the natural. Yeah.
But
or if you're
it's
working in a
inviting.
cubicle at the end of one of those, right?
Right, and I think so many people, if they do, a lot of people work from home, a lot of people don't, but there's a lot of people who spend a lot of time in cubicles under that, and they want another place to come in and do their work.
Yeah.
We have a lot of work from home people who use our space,
Sure.
and we're happy to accommodate that. So I think that's important. Having a robust children's area is really important. Having a dedicated space for teens is important. Our location is so important because we are walking distance from schools, and we get a lot of influx of kids and teens using our space.
Sure.
We have people of all ages.
Yeah.
But I think, our physical location is so important.
Sure.
And so I think making it welcoming and inviting is just so important in terms of a library space. Having enough room for the books is important too.
Yeah, you need that.
We
Right,
need that.
right,
That
right.
is core to what we do.
Yeah, literal accessibility and the ability for your staff to make sure things are organized and, accessible.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'm going to bring the elephant in a little closer. There has been talk, suggestion out in the community among residents of, hey, look, we purchased this community center. We've got this library repair project. Why aren't we really building community in the truest sense and moving the library on a permanent basis? I'm not talking about temporary space. On a permanent basis into the community center. So just for background, so the community center building down at Bay State Commons is a 60,000 square foot building, 30,000 on the top floor, second floor, 30,000 on the first floor. Now, the commitment all along from the select board and in cooperation with other boards and committees and ultimately the taxpayers who voted to purchase the building is that the senior center would move to that first floor. The expectation in moving that was that the senior center would have more space, significantly more space than it has today, and that is what is being designed out. So we got to take 30,000 and minus some amount. I'm not going to get into specifics here. Today, the library has 22,000 square feet of space. So math has never been my strongest suit, but if you look at 30,000, you take it away 22,000. For a full operating, what are the hours of the library typically?
So we're open 60 hours a week.
60 hours a week.
60 hours a week.
So 60 hours a week in 22,000 square feet from 30,000, that leaves about 8,000 on the first floor. Okay, so that's the conversation. Why not do it, Kate?
So I love that the conversation's happening in town, and I love how involved our public is in this.
Yeah.
It's really nice to see people taking an interest in civics, right? But I think beyond what you just said, which is that we won't fit, right? I think there's a lot of considerations. This library project has been going on for years and years and years and years. This has been a very long process, and every stone's been turned, every little thing that we could look at to improve or change or make efficient, we have done. Our library building committee is an amazing committee of really knowledgeable folks who've been at this since the start when it was an expansion project. And some of the work that we did while it was an expansion project was do focus groups and surveys of the public and of stakeholders and ask the question of, should the library stay where it is or do we look for a new site for it? And overwhelmingly, in every case, what the public wanted was us to stay in our historic 1906 building.
Right.
And so that's the work we've been doing so far.
And for those that want to kind of push back and say, well, but that survey was done in, and I don't remember the date, but pre-COVID 2015, whatever the date was, the message then was, this is what we want, and that has been the track that we've been on. And so taking the space need and that public input, I think kind of brings us back to right up the street from where we are today.
Yeah, and I think the plan that the Library Building Committee has come up with is very smart, uses every square inch of our 22,000 square feet in a really useful way. And while it is a repair project and it's fairly bare bones in terms of bells and whistles,
Sure.
I think it will give us a really good foundation to build something really wonderful for the public.
Yeah, for decades to come.
For decades to
Great.
come.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Kate, I'd love to have you back on the show to talk more about the project as we get closer to town meeting, because that's the next big milestone,
Yes,
right?
it is.
That will be the vote, the presentation of the cost and the design plan, and ultimately the town's support or not of the project, right?
Yes.
All right, great. So I'll have you and members of the building committee back on to talk about that. I'd love that.
That would be amazing.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that Kate Coraccio, our library director, was able to join me today. Hope you enjoyed this time. And I'll be right back with a quick update on an upcoming event called Winter Lights. Okay, and welcome back for this third segment of today's 01581. I'm joined by our Recreation Director, Jen Kirkland, and by the Chair of the Winter Lights Committee for the Rotary Club of Westboro, Jim Colson. Jen, tell us about what's happening on Sunday, December 1st.
Yeah, we're so excited. It's here already. Our light parade will be on Sunday, December 1st at about 5 o'clock. Start on School Street. It's a very short parade, but it's the best parade of the year. We start at School Street. We go down West Main Street. We have about 13 vehicles right now lined up to go, so it should be a lot of fun. If you're interested in entering your vehicle and you want some more information, you can reach out to my office, but do it soon as we're coming right up onto the event. So like I said, the parade starts at about 5. We get to the Rotary about 5:20-ish, and then we turn it over to the Rotary Club.
Right, excellent. And Jen, just on, so what's the phone number of your office?
508-366-3066.
Good, excellent. And so folks can contact you. The idea is to decorate their vehicles, and you can give them all the interesting information that they need to know about that. Awesome. All right, well, we'd love participants. Last year we had a whole Jeep parade. We had the celebration of the Westboro High School volleyball girls team, state champions. Maybe they'll make another appearance, I hope.
I know, I should reach out to them.
Awesome. So thank you, Jen. And Jim, you're chair of the Rotary Club's committee for Winter Lights.
Right.
The committee has been busy with banners and decorating the downtown through our Christmas decors, the vendor we work with, because we're way too old to hang those lights now. The trees are too big. So tell us about what's going on once the parade.
We about 3 or 4 years ago, we really made a major investment, the Rotary Club, in the Winter Lights, and I think the town has responded really, really well. So this year again, we have banners that have been paid for by sponsors. There's actually about 60 banners, 40 light posts in town. You've probably seen them, and we decorate them all with garland and lights, and then we also decorate the trees downtown. So we'll be doing that again. We have the big turn on the lights night, which is December 1st, as Jen was saying, and we work very closely with the town on this. Jen and her group. They do the parade. We have Santa at the end of the parade, and as Santa comes down,
It's amazing we can get him because he's busy, right?
well,
the fact that he comes to Westboro, right?
It is amazing,
it's amazing.
and we pay dearly.
Yeah,
but
right,
you know. But anyway, when Santa comes down at the end of the parade, he does the countdown for the lights to go on, which is I think all the kids love that.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a nice night in particular, we have throngs of people, and even if it's not so nice, we have a lot of people down, and it's very worthwhile. We have hot chocolate. There's candy canes being given out. I mean, it's really quite the night, Shelby. Anyway, the Santa Claus then, we have a little spot right down on the Rotary where he sits and the kids line up and they take pictures. It is just truly a magical night. We have some characters that are, Mrs. Claus will be there
Yes,
this
she
year,
will
which is
be. Yep.
a new part of it.
And I hear the Grinch might be making an appearance
The
through the
Grinch,
crowd.
always.
That's my Grinch move.
Always popular, the Grinch, yeah. So, and we have the high school choir coming down. They'll be doing a sing-song during the time that we have Santa Claus there, and the high school band as well this year. So we're really looking forward to a terrific night.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, great, Jim. You've covered all of it. Folks, this is a community event for all. It's free to come and enjoy the sights and sounds as we kick off the holiday season and the beautification really of our downtown. And we'll hope you join us on Sunday, December 1st. Downtown, starting around 5 o'clock is the parade, and the events will continue until Santa hears that last child's wish, and however long that takes. And this is an all-weather event. The only time we've canceled it was because of really inclement, like high wind weather, but we'll be there. So stay tuned on the town's website for any announcements and in the Facebook page, as well as the Rotary Club of Westboro. And I want to thank Jennifer and Jim for joining me today.
Thank you,
And
Shelby.
we're ready to go. So thanks so much. We'll see you on Sunday, December 1st.